Welcome to our sixth budget hearing on the County Executive's 2019 budget. This is the sixth meeting we've all been together. We have one more to go. We have Thursday, November 1st, doing some general government agencies. Anybody have any questions on the committee?
We're going to have that one on the 7th?
Not certain yet, but probably not.
Okay, because I got something else.
Mr. Clay? Sure. Can we go around and have the members of the Audit and Finance Committee introduce themselves? And we're also joined tonight by members of the Personnel Committee. So why don't we start with Mr. Bergdorf?
Paul Bergdorf, Colony, number 23, Latham Loudonville in the Village of Colony.
Joe O'Brien, District 25, Colony, Loudonville, West Albany.
Mark Grimm, Vice Chair of Finance and Chair of Personnel. My 29th district is Guildwood.
Charlie Dawson, Chair of Audit and Finance from Glenmont and Delmar.
Lynn Lakakis, Albany, Delaware area, District 8 for the Personnel Committee.
Wanda Willingham, District 3, West Hill, West Albany, Arbor Hill, and North Albany.
Bill Clay. I guess I could say I got them all.
Christopher Higgins, Facebook downtown.
Would the other members like to introduce themselves, please? Personnel Committee members, yeah.
Rick Touche, 37th District, Queens.
Sean Ward, 16th Legislative District, Green Island, Cohoes, Waterville, Maplewood, and even parts of Colony.
And former chair of this Personnel Committee.
Thank you.
Right? Mr. Majority Leader?
Dennis Feeney, District 28, Western Guildwood.
Okay, we're going to start off with Civil Service tonight. John Marcellet is here. Come on up and introduce folks with you, please.
Sure will, thank you.
We know you have such a big staff.
Well, I'm here with the fabulous and great Anna Black, Senior Personnel Technician, and David Walker are the right arms, important right arms in the Department of Civil Service. And thank you for allowing us to meet with you. Hi, everybody. I usually start off by saying we're the unexciting department, but that's up to you guys to decide how excited we are. But anyway, our budget pretty much stays the same every year. As you said, Mr. Chairman, we don't have a lot of employees, but we do a lot. Take care of some 65 jurisdictions.
Yeah, can you explain, John, that you go beyond just Albany County workforce, you're also helping providing technical assistance to...
Absolutely. If you can imagine every town, village, school district, some authorities, libraries in Albany County, with the exception of the cities of Cohoes, Waterville, Town of Colony, and
all the municipalities in the county of Albany.
we take care of civil service.
Did you say fire districts too? Are there any paid?
At this time, we don't have any fire districts. We've been in touch with some fire districts. And we don't have any fire districts that we're working with right now. But we do have some 65 jurisdictions, which of course include all the county departments naturally. And not because I created anything, but I'd like to say that civil service has sort of been on the cutting edge of regionalization and shared services and things like that. I think a lot of the, particularly the towns and villages, it saves them money because they don't have to create their own commission or civil service department or anything.
So where do you offer your exams?
We have various sites. Maybe Hannah can go into some of the, you mean as far as where they're given, or?
Yeah, just, so you're not holding all of your exams right here at headquarters of the county?
No, but if we can fit everyone here, we like to use this building because we have to pay for the use of school districts when we do have to use them,
Even though you're providing them
even though,
and what do they charge for doing that?
quite a bit. So, for example, the last time, just a few months ago, we had to use Sand Creek Middle School, and our bill was $550.
And what's the value of the technical assistance that your office is providing a school district like South Colony?
That's a good question. We do North and South Colony School District. We don't do the town of Colony, however.
So you have agreements with, so you're not mandated to provide,
We're mandated under civil
to
service law.
offer the service, but if
They
they don't have to
decide,
take it.
they decide that they don't want to do it any longer. Say, for example, the town of Colony said, well, we want to do away with a civil service component. We would be required by law to take it over. We wouldn't have any choice.
So their choice right now, they're doing their own
Yeah,
work.
under civil service law. We don't get any money from anybody, but, you know, I know Lehanna says it's expensive, but we still keep the cost down. I mean, if you look at,
Well, we also only use them when we absolutely have to.
yeah, it doesn't run into a lot of money. I mean, it's expensive for the day,
It's
but.
expensive for one, yes,
Yeah.
for one.
But when you're using, we're going to pursue this a little bit more. When you're using their site, like Sand Creek, is it for their school district only, or are you doing a countywide? You just happen, why do you pick that site?
Countywide. Sometimes it's due to the volume of applicants. So when we used it recently, the Sand Creek Middle School, it was to hold the deputy sheriff exam. So no, the schools cannot use that list. So in that instance,
There might be
Gotcha.
300 applicants. I don't know how many there were around the
yeah.
correctional officers, deputy sheriffs.
So you've taken 300 people to take the test?
It might be that many. I forgot the exact number. I think it was actually 230
Less.
something, wasn't it? 230 something.
Mr. Clay?
It was the exact number, but
Okay.
it's a lot of people, so we have to go to a bigger site. But I mean, it doesn't, I'm not trying to minimize it by any, I know every dollar counts, but we're not spending umpteen
Right.
dollars on, as Hannah said, we use county site, use here when we can. It's unusual that we have to go there.
It is.
You can do it down
Maybe
there.
twice a year at most.
I mean, it's not running into a lot of money.
Shared
We
services,
even-
Sean?
Marking it down.
Hey, we can,
We
you
even
know,
will do double sessions. If it's a very short exam, we do double sessions so as to accommodate everyone in this building. And we also use the health department and occasionally DSS.
so you're down at the DMV, interesting space down there.
Yes.
Mr. Clay, you have a question?
Yeah, the question was, what are the charges based on?
I'm sorry, what's that?
The charges? How do
For
you-
this
how do they-
space?
Yeah, how do they base the charges?
Facility use, and there's just a blanket facility use fee, and then also custodial fees to pay to have a janitor there.
Okay, Mr. Bergdorf?
John,
Yes, sir.
so Colony and the city of Albany maintain their,
They do, as well as Waterville and Cohoes.
okay. So are there any substantial differences in the titles that those municipalities would use? Is there anything that causes the city or the town of Colony to say, I need my own civil service department?
Well, there are differences in titles. There are a lot of similarities. Of course, right away you have the City of Albany police officer. We have Manans police officers. We have part-time police officers in Ravina, Guilderland, Bethlehem.
But when a municipality that you control, when you do the civil service, do you work with them to come up with job descriptions tailored to their community, or they have to be generic?
Both.
Sometimes there are major differences, sometimes defined differences. We actually have to, if somebody wants us to look at a title, to see if that title is comparable to a title that we have, that maybe somebody can transfer their status. We will try to make a determination, but it has to go through New York State Civil Service sometimes to see how close, like the exam that somebody took, how close it is, what the requirements were. Sometimes the level of education is different.
I'm just asking a hypothetical, like
Yeah.
if the town of Colony had a sewer treatment operator title, would their specs for education and quals be the same as our water purification district, or would they
Well-
potentially be different, or?
Guilderland does have its own titles. They do have different titles. Sometimes they have sewer and water operators.
And you administer Guilderland?
We do.
And you've worked with them to come up with custom?
Yes, yeah, they have,
Some are customized, and there are positions that are more generic titles, and that would not be specific to each location. But yes, many locations have location-specific titles.
we encourage them, of course, if we already have an existing position. Anytime we're trying to work with somebody, it saves them time, it saves us time. We encourage people to try to use the same position, because then they have to do some paperwork, which would be creating a new position. You start getting into the paperwork, and then there's also classifying that position. If we're using an already existing title, then there's a lot less paperwork. And so we've encouraged them at times to, here's a good title to use right here. But even though Colony does their own civil service, we still do the school, we do the school districts. I guess at some point they decided they want to do the school districts. So, and BOCES is another huge one.
Yes.
John,
Yeah, he's got
Yes, sir.
do,
Mr. Clay.
thank you, sir.
We didn't know that civil service would be such a stimulating conversation tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited. Don't anybody get mad at me. Let's deal with that. No, I'm only kidding. Glad to help any.
Well, of course, I have a little bit of interest in the police titles because of my background. But, so, do the county civil service, how do you work when a part-time police officer transfer over to a full-time in another department? How do you work that?
That only have, Ravina, you want to technical?
It depends on whether or not the part-time police officer has competitive class status or not. Per our rules, police officer part-time is in the non-competitive class, meaning you do not have to take an examination to be in that position. You can a jurisdiction can choose to fill a part-time position through competitive means, such as happens at the town of Coymans. So if it's a part-time police officer with non-competitive status, she cannot transfer to be full-time without having been on the list, meeting the age requirements, all that goes into that. If it's a part-timer with competitive class status, that's a very simple transfer to a full-time position.
John, I got a couple of budget questions here for you.
Sure.
You were concerned about examination security. You listed it as your biggest risk for 2019. Can you say a little bit more about that and what we can do to help?
I have to rely on Hannah again on the security. We have a test site supervisor, and we have proctors, and then there's a procedure that New York State Civil Service has for returning materials and so forth, but I'll let Hannah expand.
That's an
on that.
ongoing general risk that we face all the time, is exam security and how to maintain that.
If you're giving exams here, maybe that's less of an issue than if you're out at Sand Creek or...
No,
Not
not
necessarily?
not necessarily. It's pretty much about housing the exam materials once they are on site in a safe and secure location.
Paper? Paper exam?
Yes,
Oh, old school.
yes.
There's also a protocol too, if, say, for example, a member of the staff were taking an exam, there's a protocol that's set up, you know, to handle that as well.
And then also monitoring the day of the exam to make sure there's no cheating going on.
Okay, so
Exam security is, in general, is,
this may be an HR question for Commissioner Clement, but I think I read either your budget or HR that you propose to give exams, waive the fee for exams for, well, let me ask you. So, either one of you can, how much is that going to cost us? And I mean, it seems like a good idea, but it's two, so the proposal is up to 2 exams free, and that's a means tested?
We do that already, we get for county employees 2
Right,
free
I
exams.
sponsored that. 2001.
And we also, for people that are on public assistance and unemployment, public assistance.
So what's the
we
fiscal,
raise
what's the cost on estimate that to be for next year?
I proposed 18,000.
18,000.
To
Were you-
offset.
Are you talking about transferring that from conferences and training? Don't you need that conference and training money?
We, well, do you want me to go through?
Just
So the,
make a quick one.
we're proposing to transfer the funds because it's essentially exams and training inclusive. We currently utilize the maximum, people weren't accessing as much tuition reimbursement as we anticipated. So.
All right, I hear you. So point is, you two work very closely together. Okay, that's just, members, Mr. Longham, you had a-
Yes. I was just trying to find where the expenses for actually providing the exams is. Where's that at?
At the bottom of the line, it talks about total revenue, and then it talks about assessment up above. There's a breakdown. There's a breakdown at which we get some of the money, and then a portion by civil service law goes to New York State Civil Service. So we charge, for example, we charge $20 for an exam, and uniform is $30, but New York State.
So if you waive the fee, you're still got to pay the state.
Correct.
So the county's eating that cost.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
It's a good purpose, but it's.
Okay, so just two more quick questions. I notice here you says provide outreach to increase veteran and minority applicants. So what exactly are you doing? And does the county give exams in Spanish?
The county has a couple of titles for which we have held Spanish-speaking exams. One of them is Eligibility Examiner 1 of the DSS. The other one is escaping me. Caseworker, I don't recall giving, that might be the other one, but that, we haven't held that Spanish-speaking in quite some time.
And with regard to outreach?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Primarily outreach is working with HR, perhaps having a table at a job fair, like we do the Martin Luther King, and there's one coming up that Hannah's going to.
Yes, John Bill and I, and one of our coworkers just attended a veterans job fair just a week or two ago.
And we also, besides sending out the announcements to county legislators, we have quite an extensive list of I mean, it's not personal outreach, but it's by email, or, we send to different organizations letting them know about exams coming up and so forth.
Right.
We're always open to other,
Do you do like a social media at all to try to get the word out a little bit?
No, well, social media, Sean's actually very good at sending.
I get a couple thousand hits every time.
Just saying, on Facebook, look at this, look at the website for the county, civil service, and exams have been posted.
And I assume these tests are only for Albany County residents?
No.
Oh, everybody.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
So do you waive that fee for non-residents, or are you going, or,
Waive which fee, sir?
well, the fee that you're gonna,
Oh, Jen, I'm sorry.
you're gonna waive that fee next year, but are they,
For the first 2 exams.
but is it just gonna be for Albany County residents, or are you gonna waive it for, let's say, people from Leinster County, or Greene County, or Columbia County?
To be a resident and to be a hire, they could technically sit for an Albany County exam.
Okay,
That's for Albany County positions
Yeah.
only.
okay.
We hold exams, some of our exams are open, the title is used in county and outside of the county.
Okay,
We have outside jurisdictions that,
okay,
Guilderland, for example, that sometimes will say they want a resident-only list, so we'll certify a resident-only list. Sometimes they say we want both, and we'll send them
Okay.
both, and then it's up to them, at least outside the county departments. They might want actually, they don't care where the residents are from. Most of them do, but sometimes they don't. It might be a hard position to recruit for, too.
Thanks, John.
Yes,
We're,
sir.
stick around for the workforce, part 2 of our meeting tonight on workforce
Absolutely.
issues.
All right.
And just a minute, Mr. Bullock. Does the chair personnel or the vice chair have any questions? Mr. Bullock, one last question?
Yeah, on the benefits consultant, I see an increase of 2,000. What, you can't do that job in-house on the benefit consultant, what is it for?
That's going to be,
That's
that's
not
going to be
us.
HR.
HR.
That's gonna be HR.
All right, well, thank you very much, and we'll
Okay, yeah.
segue
And,
over into
Thank you
Jen
all.
Clement.
Thank you all for your support, and of course, the county executive and the legislature make our budget happen, so thank you all.
You want the mayor?
Thank you. No, we're good, though.
Lucy's in the pond, that's what needs.
Thank you.
That's an HR.
Good evening, Commissioner, my favorite agency. all of Albany County. Let's talk about Delta Dental.
Nobody wants to talk about Delta Dental.
When the deputy county executive was here, Jen, we also talked about the equity agenda. So, do you refresh our memory about what that is that you're proposing and how all that's going to work? I'm sure a lot of the members have questions.
Included in our budget is a new position called the Equity Agenda Coordinator for $50,000. And that is part of a countywide effort to ensure equitable access to services delivered by Albany County. This position specifically will work on EEO, MWBE, and work to coordinate services throughout the departments.
Is that a full-time job for
It is.
$50,000?
Correct.
Mr. Higgins?
Can you just give some specific, if you had a job description to put out to post, what would it say? Specifically,
Specifically,
qualifications, what the metrics would be. I mean,
the qualifications are going to be similar to.
is it exempt?
I'm proposing that it would be non-competitive based on qualifications and experience. However, it's currently up for proposal before the state because it would have to first be approved for that classification. But I'm proposing it be qualifications and experience as a non-competitive. So that's why the job specification isn't quite developed because it has to be approved through that process.
So would you explain, when you say, non-competitive, there's still a credentialing process. Would you just don't leave it hanging there like that? Like there's
Correct.
the qualifications are still solicited, right, and presented, so.
Yes, in the competitive class, and John can probably speak more to the precision on it, non-competitive, but there are minimum qualifications that must be met in order to qualify for the position. And then candidates are selected from those minimum qualifications. It is not, you can't go below the minimum.
I guess I'd just like some more information about it. It's, you know.
Will that be, will we have that information before we pass the budget on December 3rd?
Sure, we can craft a, a job specification. Is that what you're,
Yeah, like.
that is pending? It won't be obviously finalized.
Sure. I guess I'm just confused. Is the person's not like an MWBE coordinator? What exactly are they doing again?
Equity
So,
agenda?
similar to the affirmative action compliance officer, it's just slightly below that officer position in the sense that the equity agenda coordinator is going to work countywide on ensuring that programs and services that have been targeted through the equity agenda for to ensure equitable access to services, that HR's role in that is coordinated.
So this person is going to work in the Division of Affirmative Action,
Correct.
and so report to that person and then also to you. How about the county executive's office? Are they going to be involved? Is this person going to, since it's a countywide agenda, how does
They will
tie in with
coordinate
them?
with the county executive's office in terms of the equity agenda items, and they will ensure that our human resources role in that agenda is fulfilled.
So they would be involved in hiring this person as well? County executive's office? I mean, why isn't this position in the county executive's office?
Because it's specifically relating to equity as it pertains to the role of affirmative action in the county.
Chris, did you follow up or?
You keep saying equity agenda. Is that some sort of a policy? Is it laid out somewhere? What exactly is the equity agenda?
Can Mr. McLaughlin offer some insight into this?
I mean, I don't think I
This
voted
is
to.
related to an item that was just passed here last month through Audit and Finance, and at that meeting I explained there is no equity agenda. That's what the past couple of years of development have been. We started with a survey of all of our departments. The next phase of the contract, if you will, in which we worked with SUNY Center for Human Research was
That's right, good. So this is where the idea came from, was the SUNY Center.
Well, they weren't the proposer of the idea. We brought them on board once we learned of what had been done out in King County, out in Washington, Seattle, Washington. They were kind of I guess they were on the forefront of this effort. They have a whole department within their county that is dedicated to equity. And it deals with everything from the internal things that the commissioner has been referring to external things related to how the departments interact with the community. So, as I mentioned, we did a survey of all of our departments to see what their understanding of equity was. We then, once we kind of set that baseline, brought the center back, had another contract with them that was for hand-in-hand working with each department. My colleague, everybody knows, Bakri, has been working with all of our departments to, frankly, raise their awareness. There's been a lot of trainings. One such training that I referred to at the committee meeting was Bridges Out of Poverty, which kind of goes into, for those departments that are interacting with the community directly, most obviously DSS, folks walking into DSS to get benefits, really helps them understand the situations that people are coming into the building.
All right, so this fits in with part 2 of our discussion tonight. This is really a recruitment effort, wouldn't you say?
There's an employment.
But also within retention of workforce.
Are you talking about, so for the human resources position, there is an employment piece relating to the equity agenda, and then there's other components including MWBE, and those are outlined in the proposal for the position.
Because the internal things are so significant, it made much more sense to have this position in HR.
So what are the qualifications for this, this person? Do we have it yet?
No.
We can send you the proposed job specification, which includes minimum qualifications.
I guess what I'm concerned about is if you're going the route of suggesting that this person has needs substantial qualifications, I would assume a college degree, some sort of experience, actual quals, demonstrated ability. Who do you get for $50,000 full-time?
We have,
You have somebody in mind?
no, $50,000 isn't a terribly low salary, and we feel we can get a qualified candidate at that.
It's very low
rate of pay.
salary. All that for 50,000.
I think it's embarrassing. I mean, in terms of not your efforts, but just the level of employee and what we hope to get out of someone.
Well, the compliance was just a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
This
According to Kakis.
Thank you.
It's indicative of the importance we place on the program.
I think when you were talking, I thought it was one thing, and then when Mike started talking, I thought maybe it was another thing. So it's, in addition to being a workforce development thing, is it also it's gonna maybe educate some of the employees that we already have into access for everybody and how people get to their job, how to do their job better, how to be more empathetic to their clients, how to reach over the chasms that exist in our society between lots of us. And then in addition, you're also saying that are they gonna evaluate any programs that we do about the access that we provide to like seniors or veterans, or is it gonna be that far sweeping, or is it internal only?
So this position is internal only. I think Mike was talking about the broader programmatic agenda. This is specific to the employment and workforce development items. Employment is a component including workforce development, which is training, education, and helping departments achieve those goals that they have within the agenda.
Okay, thanks.
Any other members have questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Grimm.
I think what this position needs are clear practical outcomes that we hope to achieve and by which this coordinator will be judged. In other words, it seems a little vague to, I think, a number of members as to what exactly our expectations are. So I think both the coordinator and also the members need to know, okay, this is exactly what we're trying to accomplish. A, B, C, and D.
What are the measures, like a year from now, when you come back to
Yeah.
talk with us next year,
It'll work.
assuming we approve this position, it's the second one. How are we gonna evaluate whether it was successful or not? When they're asking for a raise from 50,000 to, whatever.
So within our budget, I understand what you're saying, there are the measurable outcomes that we're looking to achieve. This is a coordinator, so it's not gonna solely rest on them to accomplish this. They're going to be coordinating with other departments, they're going to be coordinating with the affirmative action director, as well as the affirmative action compliance officer. So all of those positions will work together. Their job is to coordinate with the other departments and ensure that we are staying on track with the agenda. In the last items are measurable outcomes and what we're seeking to accomplish.
My concern would be that they're coordinating with people who are above them, and that could present some difficulties. So that if this coordination, this is an important initiative, it seems to me that maybe it would be coming from the county executive's office if you really want to, pull everybody together here. Or that they're at a higher level position than you're anticipating based on what I'm hearing tonight.
We have coordinators
I would
in
just,
many facets in the county that coordinate higher ranking and pull all of that information together in a comprehensive way and present. It's not necessarily required that they be at a higher level, but that they coordinate with all of those stakeholders.
Mike, did you have?
Yeah, for those items that fall out of the purview of this position, to Legislator Grimm's point, as I kind of mentioned at the committee meeting, the whole point of this last contract with Center for Human Services Research is to set up the metrics for measuring that. which will in turn also allow us to get to legislative.
All right, so when are you gonna hire
questions,
this, when, would-
develop an
assuming we
actual
approve this in
agenda.
the budget for $50,000, when would this position come online? We have still got some civil service approvals or not civil service if we go around, and you still have to
I would
get-
like to hire the person pending the civil service
January
approval.
1?
Well, if the budget passes mid-December, I would like to bring the person on board as soon as
So you have
possible.
somebody in mind already?
No,
No, okay.
begin that recruitment. I can't begin in advance of approval.
All right, stay tuned, come on back for part 2. The benefit consultant, Mr. Bullock's question.
Want to know why is the 2,000 increase and why can't you do this kind of work in-house?
The benefit consultant does the analysis of all of our RFPs for our health insurance, pharmaceutical, as well as workers' compensation, dental. He is been our contractor for this. That increase is actually attributed to a fee that we've been paying. We just shifted it to the correct account.
Any other questions by committee members, non-personnel committee? Mr. Bergdorf?
It's just a quick one, and it probably is one for another day. But
Can we approve this for 1 year?
how
See how it
has
works out?
the background check
Can we approve
program
this for
gone
1 year and see how it works?
since it was initiated? The countywide background check.
Currently working on the requirements of the background with the criminal law, and we have made headway on the positions that require a background, and then also the other resolution requiring removal of the question of criminal background from the application.
Yeah.
So with those two resolutions, we are working to ensure that the positions that require criminal background are done.
Okay, I'm having a little bit of a disconnect here because we passed this a significant amount of time ago. And we were of the opinion that it was happening and there was a report due as to how we were doing. How's that report coming?
So there are two different, I need to ask you there's two different resolutions regarding criminal background. And so I guess we need to get specific on which
You have a seat at the table.
resolution. There was a report regarding
Elected official.
the removal of the
From the
criminal
back.
background from the application and whether or not that had an impact.
No, that was the local law,
Correct?
ban the box, okay? And then after that, there's a piece of legislation sponsored by Sean and myself and others, which created a mandatory background check for the rest of county employees unless they were prohibited by law. Unless they were prohibited by law. So, maybe we should take this offline and have a different meeting.
Good
Find
idea.
out what the status of that is, whether or not you have the correct amount of personnel to administer that, how it's going, because it should have been up and running for quite some time now.
There are criminal background checks that are currently done by the Sheriff's Department in compliance with the resolution.
There are.
But that's not done within HR, again, done through the Sheriff's Department. There are positions that are just a background check, not a criminal background check.
Okay,
So
but there's
we can-
a report that's supposed to be, if you go back to that legislation, I would ask you to take a look at it. Because there's supposed to be a report back to the legislature as to what the results of the criminal background, not by person or individual, but a general report to the legislature.
Mr. Fine?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few comments. Question, I'll try to make it as quick as possible.
Thank you.
I want to say that I like a lot of the improvements that have been suggested around diversity, active recruitment of members from diverse backgrounds, promoting civil service exams, waiving the exam fee. I like a lot of the suggestions with the MWBE reporting, with the electronic reporting system, the streamlining certification process. I think that's important to make it so people don't have to do a duplicate application for the state and the county. Another suggestion I have, I know that Erie County and the city of Buffalo have actually combined their counties and the cities application so that people, if they're certified by the county of Erie or the city of Buffalo, they only have to do one application. So I'm wondering if you've looked into the possibility of working with the city of Albany or other municipalities in the county to streamline that even a step further. Yeah, I'll start there. I do have a couple more, another question to be answered.
We're not currently combined, however, I can review that. We're not currently combined. I can review the possibility of combining in with their current application process.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know that you're just in the initial stages of combining with the state.
Well, we will currently accept the states as our qualification for certification through Albany County.
So what further streamlining would be done between the county and the state?
Right now, we have them fill out, once they provide us with that, we have them fill out our application, which would be removed. We would basically accept that application as ours, and we would streamline ours so it mirrors, and we need not have this duplicate process. So it would just be accepted in its entirety.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good improvement, definitely worthy of doing. I do also...
One more.
One more. I want to ask, because we've been having a lot of talk about workforce retainment, talk with Larry Slapke, the nursing home. We've, during the social services, we talked about that, people leaving the county to go to the state or the private sector, which I know has been a common theme. You know, it's been, we've changed salaries in the district attorney's office because of this. So I'm concerned with that, but I'm also concerned with some salaries that just, it seems like people aren't being paid fairly, likely being paid below $15 an hour. For example, in the nursing home, I know there's contracts, union contracts that have to be negotiated there, but can you speak a little bit about any larger efforts to address these issues?
Do you want to talk about those?
Part two, and that's
Okay.
part of
part two?
That's part
the
two.
equity agenda.
When will that be?
Two.
When's part two?
After part one. Depending on how many more questions you have to ask, it'll be sooner or later. Commissioner, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. Mr. Fine has more questions for you. So now we'll do children, youth, and families. Welcome back, Commissioner. I think last time we were here, we talked about inviting you back to talk about, you're the instigator of our work, our part two tonight, basically.
It seems I own that.
Would you introduce staff who joined you, please?
Yes, I would love to. This is Maura Manning, Deputy Commissioner with the department, and Beth O'Neill, our Director of Accounts.
Thanks for being here. Have at it, and we'll have a few questions for you, I'm sure.
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to present our department's budget for the 2019 fiscal year. Overall, there are no significant changes to the budget outside of costs that have increased in regards to the programming we provide. You know, there are certain areas in which there are costs that are not necessarily within our control due to the essential mandates of those programs, such as our preschool program, foster care, transportation related to preschool. So those, we have seen increased costs with those, but we also have reimbursements that help to mitigate some of those costs within the budget. We will in terms of looking at 2019, we're looking at how our department is functioning, and so we have proposed some changes in regards to positions related to looking at overall structure and functioning of the department.
Yeah, when you were here last time, we were making some late-year budget modifications because you had high turnover, you were trying to fill positions. So you're still coming in at, I think you're at 178 positions now. Does that sound about right?
Right, we
You're
have,
proposing 170, it's the same number?
right, we currently have 22 vacancies
Yeah,
within.
within that 178, there's 22 vacancies.
Correct.
We'll try to get to that on the next part two. So you have a fairly substantial increase for 2019 compared to 2018. I think it's up almost $11 million, if I'm correct. It's over almost 14%. You were mentioning some state mandates.
Right, and what I did
programs.
mention was raise the age, which is also.
So you're tied in to raise the age as well?
Yes, so that would also be a primary factor in regards to the increase.
How does raise the age impact your ages?
Well, in terms of positions, because of the anticipated number of youth that are going to be coming in, we're going to need additional caseworkers. We're also looking.
So you're going to be working with the legal side of folks as well?
Well, in regards to the legal, but also in terms of when the youth comes in terms of programs and services, especially if they are transferred from the youth part to family court, and then that does involve our caseworker staff in terms of if they need to go to placement. Additionally, we're looking at, because of all the costs associated with it and the claims would be coming through our department, then that also necessitates the need for an account clerk position. And we also look at, in terms of on the placement side, not only it's just in terms of our voluntary agencies, but also anticipate there will be increased costs for non-secure detention. So we've factored that in as well.
So,
as well as programs and services.
Under your current mission, you have difficulty with retention at times, right? And now you've got these new mandates from the state, even though these positions are going to be paid for by the state, as I understand it. How many positions are related to raise the age coming on?
Within the department's budget, we've requested 2 caseworkers between 2019 to 20, as well as the account clerk too.
Account clerk, right? Okay. Sean, do you have anything to elaborate on that? Commissioner?
I think that, CYF is going to see a substantial burden put on them with this. I mean,
Substantial, I'm sorry, what?
I think this is going to be a substantial burden that is going to be put on the department here.
We're concerned about that.
That's, basically most of the juveniles that get into this program are going to be under their purview. You're going to have, early intervention and everything of that nature touching upon them, so yes. That's why we saw the amendment, they came to us first this year.
Right.
You're going to have already.
So you've already bumped up to the 170, all right. Mr. O'Brien?
How do you come about coming up with that figure, the increase? What factors did you take?
So in terms of the caseworkers, we looked at what were the projected increases. The OCFS, the Office of Children and Family Services, actually provided us with some data in terms of what Albany County could anticipate in terms of increased numbers of youth. So on the voluntary placement side, at the full implementation of Raise the Age in 2020, it's overall estimated that we'll see an increased number of 45 to 60 youth. For detention, it's anticipated over at full implementation, it's an increase of 5 to 10 youth. So we factored those projections in terms of estimating what are the current caseload size and what we anticipate additional staffing we would need to meet those additional youth in terms of services.
I'm sorry. So, Joe, would you ask the question again?
I said, what are factors, how did you come about this increase? What factors did you use?
Two positions, Raise the Age, plus the account clerk, that's 3 positions. But that doesn't explain a 900,000 or so increase. Besides, those positions are generally going to be paid for by the state, right?
I think we talked about your cash.
So what else explains the $1 million roughly increase outside of Raise the Age?
So In addition to the raise the age, then we're also looking at the other areas in which we've seen increased costs, including the preschool.
Okay. Transportation?
Absolutely, transportation, which ties into preschool, so you have that. And then, increased foster care costs as well. Well, we have started, we had been trending up in our CSE placements. Going into 2019, it does appear that that will start to trend down.
So I think a lot of people don't understand that the school districts, and we have some former school board members here who may be able to help us, the counties are responsible for what age before the schools pick up the program?
We're responsible for 0 to 3.
0 to 3.
And then the preschool, so 0 to 3 for early intervention and 4 to 5 for preschool.
And when do the school districts start being responsible and the county not?
As they go age into 5 years old, so, yeah.
So we're responsible for all those educational related expenses, counties, before they get into, before the schools pick up.
Right, but then we also have responsibility if they are CSE. So if they continue to have a committee for special education services, there is still...
The committee for special education, right. So this is one of the Association of Counties platforms, I believe, to try to help the counties with this burden. So you're saying that roughly almost $1 million of the cost increase to your budget is related to early intervention and preschool?
That,
the two of them?
yes.
But not really raise the age. That's not really the big cost driver here. Like getting that straight.
That one's reimbursed. I didn't know that you were looking at the county share portion, yes.
Absolutely, yes. Because every other department we've looked at, raise the age has been paid for, or proposed to be paid 100% by the state.
It also represents that here too.
Special description in their budget about the program. So that's not really the driver here for children use. It's actually the other.
Our essential programs, yes.
Any questions from members of Audit and Finance or personnel?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Grimm.
One of the positions, you're proposing a 14% pay raise, the Director of Accounts, from 78 to 90. You said this would be equitable to salary for the Director of Accounts position in DSS. But isn't that a much larger agency, and are those positions really comparable?
In terms of the role and responsibility for the Director of Accounts, in terms of the Department for Children, Youth, and Families is actually an integrated department, and so you have actually the Office of Mental Health, State Ed, OCFS, Department of Health, and so you have varying reimbursement streams and claims that need to be accounted for, and so when you look at it in comparison to, say, DSS, and in terms of the various funding streams, there actually is a lot of coordination in terms of those claims and reimbursements that the Director of Accounts for DCYF is responsible for.
Well explained, Mr. Graham, wouldn't you say?
It's a judgment call.
So it's an equity issue.
That's
and the workload is comparable and the complexity and the, okay.
And certainly that was our view and perspective.
So this makes it comparable to DSS's Chief of Accounts?
The position Director of Accounts, yes, it would be comparable to that.
The Commissioner of Management and Budget is okay with that, so.
It is represented here.
It's in the budget. Any other questions? Ms. Cunningham? Former school board member?
There's a lot of vacancies, a lot of caseworker, senior caseworker positions. Can you just talk a little bit about the ripple effects of those vacancies on perhaps overtime? I'm just wondering, how are you managing to care for current caseload when there's so many vacancies who are directly engaged with children and families? that partly why the overtime is so high? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. There is a correlation between when we have increased vacancies, and so in terms of being able to manage the work, and when you have decreased number of staff and the work remains the same or increases, then yes, in order to be able to again meet those mandates, it does necessitate that you see an increase in the overtime. In terms of what we're doing, we did just hire 12 new caseworkers, and we are in the process of, we just completed interviews again today, and we are hoping that within the next 3 to 4 weeks that we'll have additional caseworkers that will be able to come on staff. We are looking at ways to be able, and I guess this might tie into the next part.
Yeah.
But in terms of ways to be able to support caseworkers, it is a very challenging position. And so what are ways to be able to help manage that? We certainly we're looking at assigning mentors. We're actually recognizing that it's not just caseworkers that are coming on anew, but within the last 9 months or so, we've actually had 8 new supervisors, and so we're also looking at, in tangent with new caseworkers, you have new supervisors, and so they're also learning that skill set, and so how to be able to support them in order to be able to effectively support the caseworkers. And so we actually also just started a Back to Basics training series. We thought that it made sense to kind of reset the clock, if you will, the table, if you will, in terms of consistency for all staff, in terms of on the supervisory and casework line, that everyone is on the same page in terms of information and expectations and standards. So those are just some of the ways in which we're looking to try and manage that.
Thanks, Commissioner. We'll give you a break now until we come. Okay, follow-up question.
So, in the category of things that keep you up at night, are you worried about potential, kids falling through the cracks that could be a dire situation, given that you're pretty stretched because of your, your vacancy rate?
I remember when I first started this job as a caseworker, and it was that you do the best that you can, but recognize that things are going to happen, and you can't always control for that. So what we work on is that when we receive a case that we are meeting those mandates, we are going out, we're assessing safety, we are assessing risk, we're doing what the essentials of our mandates are, and and we kind of have to look at it from that standpoint.
That's a good question. All right, take a break and come on back. Mr. Murphy. Thank you, Commissioner.
Deep.
I was close.
Close them now?
Sure want to swear.
I just opened. Do you want me to close them?
But you are.
I heard him sneezing over there. I was spitting out. Are you okay? Give us a back.
One of the reasons that you're joining us tonight has to do with turnover as well. And you had a 5-person drop in your staffing from 2018 to 2019. So what is that reduction? That's a planned reduction, I guess, right?
Yes,
so,
sir.
How's that going to affect you?
That is a planned reduction based on the regional biosolids facility that we are jointly entering into with Saratoga County. And we are staffed right now for 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year operations, which includes incinerating those biosolids at both treatment facilities. With this project, we will be consolidating that operation, and the biosolids will be managed at the central location at the north plant. So in essence, biosolids handling at the south plant will virtually stop. We will gather that those biosolids and move that to the north plant. With that, we're not going to need the round-the-clock staffing to do that.
Yeah, I read your budget presentation was mentioning the turnover that you had, and you're trying to run a 24/7 operation.
Correct.
And you also unfortunately had some deaths, and you're trying to, so in a way, this is gonna help you with your
With the
staffing.
succession plan that we
Yeah.
have. Well, I mean, we kind of, over the past 3 years, we did see a great number of retirements and people leaving. We lost about 33% of our workforce and in that period of time. Okay, we were able to, and,
Well, that had to have been expected. I mean,
it was expected in our industry. This is not, just Albany County, okay? We see this problem in our industry across the state of New York.
Aging out of the workforce.
Aging out, we're all hitting that 50-year mark, and we're seeing that. And, we have our organization, New York State Water Environment Association, which we have gathered, and they even put out a white paper with regard to succession planning to try to prepare yourself for this in our business. And, we were one of the first to experience it. And, I really have to, take a minute and thank our human resources, the Commissioner of Human Resources helped us, the Commissioner of Civil Service, Hannah. They really helped us tremendously get, our process operator exam 1, which is administered by the county, out there several times, okay, so that we could get candidates to come in and fill these positions and start training them. It was, you start looking at our human infrastructure, and it's a critical thing when you have a facility that runs like we do. We were very fortunate that we had that support, to be able to recruit, get people in, start training them, and we kind of steadied the ship, so to speak. And it worked really well.
So we're sort of segueing into part 2 already, which is fine.
Okay, sorry about that.
So, no.
Yeah.
So you're saying that assistance from other county agencies, particularly HR and civil service, helped you with the processing part, so you get these people in the door and start training them. But you also had to have had people who were, wanted the jobs. So you had to be recruited, or so there was no lack of people interested in the position.
What we were finding is it wasn't so much the lack of interest in that, okay? I mean, there was a stigma, okay? As we've grown into this, as you all know, there was a stigma, that even our own workers internally felt, when we were called the Albany County Sewer District, we had name tags and everything else, and people didn't want it on their shirts, okay? So there was that stigma, and that led to us requesting the rebranding. And I'll tell you, it did a great deal for internal morale, but it also, stimulated those that, hey, they want to work for the water purification district as opposed to the sewer district. People are taking more pride in that. Now, I'm getting employees asking for uniforms, okay, with the names on it and stuff, but.
Purification shirt.
But the other thing is, we were very fortunate too, because it's not just the entry-level positions. To move things up in our workforce, we were seeing, other stumbling blocks. And fortunately, the deputy county exec had a connection to state civil service that John worked as well with us to get our foot in the door, to address some of the problems that we were seeing with, like, tests. We were finding we were issuing exams and people weren't passing them. Okay, it was like entry-level exams. So, civil service worked with us to address that, and, we are now working with state civil service with subject matter experts, which I'm one of, to review these exams to make them, more applicable in 2018, from where we were in 1968 and, along. So the tests didn't keep up with our industry, and, we had some questions on that, I wouldn't expect anybody in here to be able to know how the 7 pulleys all turned, and, you know, that was an entry-level question, you know? So we needed to adjust that, and we were fortunate to have that ability to get into state civil service to do that.
All right, let me slip back to a budget question. That was very interesting. We should pursue this. One of the things is succession. I think we need to talk about. So the county share for your agency is projected to go to 0. In fact, you're going to have a net revenue raising effect for the county, right?
Yeah, and a little bit digest.
Your revenue is going to exceed your expenditures. Is that, am I not mistaken?
So yes, they do. The Water Purification District pays for the services rendered by other county departments, i.e. procurement, legal services, and of the likes. Yes, they are neutral to the tax levy.
They're more than neutral.
Well, they're neutral. They're actually, yes, a revenue source.
Revenue generators.
Yes.
The district is making money, even more than the clerk who came to talk to us at our first meeting was making money for the county.
Well, we're not making money for the county because we are established as an enterprise fund. Okay, you know, we are funded solely by user fees and assessments.
Right, so there's no cost to the taxpayers, to the levy in the first place.
Right, so our costs are directly borne by our 8-member communities that we support. And, you know, we forecast our budget, obviously, because in our business, our gas and electric, which are our high consumption, you know, we make an educated prediction from year to year on that. Chemicals, those type of expenditures based upon how we process the biosolids. So, and we are fortunate that, you know, it's not just that our residents use our services, which we all know how they do it, but we also can take in biosolids from other facilities to process efficiently and effectively in an environmentally sound manner.
So
that allows us to collect that money and help offset
you're
those
an enterprise
costs.
fund that's essentially off budget in that respect. You don't have a county, what we call county share, to help operate your agency. So you are a contributor, however, to the county, right?
They pay for their own services that we provide.
But we have our own
So
general
they're
fund.
All right,
Yes,
all
and they have their own
But-
general
But any more than that? Is there a surplus beyond their?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so it's net neutral. Mr. Higgins.
Just an update on the biosolid project,
Pardon me?
the biosolid project?
Yes.
Anaerobic
And is
digestion.
there any piece of that that's in the budget, or is that all
For this year,
as part of the capital plan?
well, part of a capital plan is bonding for the project, but we did transfer in 2018 $1 million to begin the engineering phase of the project.
What's the timeframe of this project?
The RFP went out last Thursday.
Oh,
We are
all right.
expecting a pre-construction meeting on November 7th, and the response to the RFP are due December 14th.
The RFP for engineering services.
Correct.
Have you decided upon the design, or is that what the engineering services are going to give you?
No, we have put out there, you know, the project in accordance with the feasibility study that was.
So the capacities, you've made a final determination, capacities?
Estimates for
Estimates.
those capacities, correct. With the ability to take in a degree of high strength organic waste. Correct. Such as food.
You got,
Mr. Bullock?
you'll be shutting down a couple incinerators once this comes online. How many are you shutting down, and you factored that into your costs, your electrical and gas?
Yes, we will be shutting down 4 incinerators.
4.
Yes.
And that, is there an amount that you'll save from that?
Yes, there will be. You know, there will be some costs to run heaters and stuff like that for gas and everything else, but, you know, yes, there will be a substantial reduction in our gas consumption.
Okay. Thank you.
So, thank you very much. Why don't we take like a 5-minute break or so? And then we'll come back and start with part 2. Welcome to the much touted part 2 of our session tonight on workforce issues. And you're probably wondering, how did we come to this? We're not having a traditional budget discussion here. But in reviewing the county executive's budget proposal this year, the one thing that really jumped out at us, like those of us who've done budgeting our whole lives professionally, is the workforce. And the feedback that we received from commissioners about, what is your greatest risk? What's the thing that concerns you the most? And it's your workforce. And our workforce is what makes this county work and run. We need good people. We need to retain them. Much of what we do is very labor intensive. So when we see high turnover, when we see a concern, it was, first brought to my attention when Commissioner Children, Youth and Families came to us a few months ago with asking for some positions, and we found out about turnover well before the budget came out. So it seems to be, and I don't know that we're going to find the answers here tonight, but we want to get these issues out on the table. We've heard from Mr. Murphy talking about, we had a lot of retirements. Was there succession planning effective or not? When the problem occurred, we had help from other agencies. That's good to know. But let's try to get some of the issues out on the table, and then we can start talking about what maybe some of the solutions are. We're unique here in Albany County in that we have the state right up the hill. In a way, it's a good thing for our employees so they get an opportunity to get entry-level training and experience here, and then they can move on, maybe something that we can't provide at the county. That can be a good thing for them to get a beginning job and then move on. But it also, when we want to retain people, they can also move on. And we're also talking about retirement moving on too. So we have a number of special issues here in the county, and if you can start throwing some of the ideas, some of your greatest concerns out on the table, and I'll start with you, Jen, as the Commissioner of Human Resources. Is this really an issue or not? And maybe you can define what the issue is, if it really is an issue.
Well, first, thank you. I think that the most important thing when we're looking at the workforce, we do need to break it down to the most minute level, which is going to be at the position level and by title. Because when we look at a department as a whole and we say the turnover rate is high, we don't know the cause. So we have to break it right down to the title, and is there a higher turnover in a specific title? Then within that, we have to break it down even further to look at what's the root cause. Is it due to retirement? Is it due to loss to the state? And what are the reason codes associated with those departures? So I think that it's unfair to just take the county as a whole and say there's a high turnover if it's not broken down to that level at every department, at every title. So some of the departments have kind of come forward and expressed concerns that they had about a turnover. Tim Murphy talked specifically about the water purification district and how they combated some of those departures associated with retirement, which is a completely different turnover when you're looking at retirements as opposed to just departures to another position at the state or something like that. Retirements take with them institutional knowledge, which is a different replacement when you're talking about replacing those vacancies. So there's a myriad of issues associated, and they're unique to the title. For us to start
analyzing these, so you're talking about retirements, succession planning. How are we on the front end recruiting? How does Albany County stack up in being able to recruit workforce in the first place? Before we get to the retention question.
So when we get to the just the recruitment for hiring, there's definitely those hard to fill positions, which I think have come before you, and addressing other issues for residency as well as salary. But for the most part, our positions in Albany County are collectively bargained. The starting salary is set through those agreements, and so there's not much wiggle room with those. as they're negotiated, but again, you have to break it down by title to determine the marketability of each position, if there is in fact a problem there for recruiting for a specific position. And there's
So
another.
residency was another interesting point, and we have a former chair, Mr. Ward is here, he's an expert on this.
There have been a
So,
few.
just to explain for people who might be watching this, we have a law in Albany County which requires us to hire Albany County residents. There are exceptions, however, in certain areas. So that may be an issue on the front end, in those difficult positions that you were talking about. Does the residency requirement interfere with our ability to hire the people we need, or not? So that's another one we got on. We have retirement, we got residency requirement. You mentioned salary, so we're paying comparably with the state, and we probably can't ever do that. But with municipalities, maybe with other counties. So we got salary, residency, collective bargaining. You mentioned, so.
Yes.
That's a constraint, but it's also an opportunity for employees. You didn't
Civil
mention...
service is the other factor in the sense that the departments are also restricted on the hiring for civil service competitive class positions where they must choose within the top 3 candidates of a list. In that they can hire provisionally if there is no active list, but in the face of a list, they must choose the top 3
So
candidates.
there's state civil service rules that we have to follow, and that can be a good thing because we're hiring people on merit and not for just patronage political reasons, let's say. But there are also obstacles that we talked about tonight. You're going to give $18,000 of your conference and training budget to waive the fees for the exams for people who want to take Albany County civil service exams, but we still have to pay the state. So
Correct, and in the hope there is to garner a greater pool of candidates sitting for exams, remove the barrier of poverty and or low income associated with, the
So if we had the whiteboard here, we got civil service up there now too. There are barriers and opportunities. You haven't mentioned well, you did mention benefits earlier, but how do we compare with benefits compared to the state, for example, or to other municipalities?
Well, our benefit package in terms of our health insurance plan for a full-time position, we have a very robust health insurance plan.
I would say that it's better than the state's.
So
Much better.
There are
Not just better, but much better. So
there's various components of it that are better, and there are
at a lower cost too.
differences.
Okay. So collective bargaining, civil service, benefits, residency, salary. Are you collecting information on all these different systematically? When you found out that Mr. Murphy was having an issue with, are we tracking the next wave of retirements in Albany County so that we know where they're going to, which agencies they're going to hit in? Are they going to it's a risk. It's a risk assessment basically for
Correct.
loss. But that's one we can kind of gauge. You can't maybe gauge as much whether they're going to get hired away, right?
Yeah.
But they're reaching retirement age.
And each department individually does their succession planning, and I have worked with those departments to analyze if they need assistance, but for the most part, the departments know they're facing, a large population of people who are planning on retiring, or whether or not they know that, they have a large population that's going to be going to the state because positions have opened up, or things like that. They do know well in advance, and they're working to address those issues. They call for exams. The exam for the caseworker position, for example, is just been asked for well in advance of exhausting the list. They asked the department to call for the exam so that they are not waiting for that list to come out, or worse, hiring provisionally, and then unfortunately have to let somebody go because they're not on the top 3. So the departments are doing planning ahead of time. HR is providing data to the department so that they can make those determinations where their greatest risk is.
So you mentioned the word provisional, and that's one of those obstacles or ways that we have to, that relates to civil service. Because you need people, you need bodies in the job, and you haven't been able to give a test yet. So you provisionally appoint them to a position, and then they got to take. But Commissioner, you meant? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say it's a.
But we're at only 5%, I think you said.
It's around. We're within 1% of the average provisional rate, which is always the balancing act. Is to we have to anticipate as well. We have to stay in touch with the departments, and then the state also has its own schedule of when it gives certain exams, and with the experience that my staff has, like Hannah and Dave in particular, been here for a number of years, they know generally what that, the state will clue us in as well. And we do have a good relationship with New York State Civil Service. So we have to anticipate, but there are sometimes those situations where you do have to hire provisionally, and the individual size.
So there's civil service, the exams, and then there's civil service, the state, because we have to work with them.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. We have to account for the New York State Civil Service.
Commissioner, you mentioned bringing on new case managers. At the same time, you had 8 new supervisors as well, and they're all trying to learn at the same time. So these are people coming in on the. You say you started as a case manager?
Caseworker, yes.
Caseworker, okay. So how do you anticipate? So I assume that a supervisor has more experience.
Yes, supervisors do, and I will say for the 8 supervisors that have retired over, within the past year or so, there was a anticipation that was going to occur because these are folks that had been with the county for 25 to 30 plus years. So it wasn't necessarily that it wasn't anticipated, but when you have it in such close succession, it still presented a challenge. So when you mention succession planning, in anticipation of folks retiring, we actually brought in someone from SUNY who actually met with those supervisors that were going to be retiring, so to get their input and their feedback in terms of what are the essentials of the positions, what information would you pass on to someone coming into this position, what are the key tools and resources that are needed for that position? Are there any key persons in any state agencies or any other community-based local agencies that are good contacts for that? So there was some planning, if you will, in terms of knowing that this was going to occur, but in terms of still, when you're having 8 supervisors within that frame, a relatively short frame of time that are leaving due to retirement, and you talk about, the brain trust in terms of information, we're talking well over 200 years of experience that, deservedly so after, 30 plus years of service, but it's still then, in terms of even with gathering that information through the succession planning, some of that is just based on the person being in the role and gaining that experience and skill set for themselves.
Okay, so another thing for the whiteboard is management, then teamwork across the agencies that deal with personnel. You also mentioned that you had employees in your agency that had been there for 25 years. Now, I haven't been here that long, but I do remember when we reorganized your department and created it. So let me ask you this, do you think organizational structure has anything to do with turnover, retention? Do you think if your agency, I'm just giving a hypothetical here, not saying this, I'm really thinking this. If you were to break your department apart again, the way it was, do you think that would help with retention?
Well, going back to what Jen had said earlier in terms of looking at it on a position-specific level. We actually, in preparation for this discussion and from the conversation with Mr. Manici, actually went back to 2013 and looked at our vacancy rate and looked at it on a position level. And I will say this, that going between 2013 and currently to 2018, when we look at the caseworkers, that vacancy rate has not fluctuated much. Currently, the vacancy rate for 2018 for the caseworkers is 18.84%. In 2017, it was 20.29%. In 2016, it was 19.35%. So we're not seeing a huge fluctuation in terms of what that vacancy rate has been over the past few years. What has made it more acute over this past year and a half, it was the vacancy rate of the caseworker positions in conjunction with the vacancy rate of the supervisor positions. That was not something that we have had. So it really, in tangent with that, it felt really much more acute with those vacancies in both those positions.
Ms. Cunningham said about not being able to sleep at night. Any members have any questions?
Yeah,
Mr. Grimm.
Mr. Chairman, there's just something, there's no easy
And I
answer.
might, as chair of personnel and the deputy chair here, you are the ones who are going to have to look at this beyond the budget, okay?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll try to do what we can, budget-wise, but we're turning this, over to you.
Yeah, I think, there's no question being next to the state is an issue, because they have $140 billion and we have 711. So, and there's not really anything we can do about that. But the research, and I've been dealing in business for 20 years, people don't leave their job, the principal reason for leaving your job is not money. We know that in 75% of the cases, there's a myriad of factors. Do they like their boss? Do they get along with their coworkers? Do they feel there's enough advancement? Are promotions fair? Am I making a difference? So, and
What white promotion on the whiteboard?
so we haven't talked about workplace culture, and why are employees leaving? Well, we should ask employees who are leaving.
Workforce culture.
I don't think I can make a sensible judgment about why our employees leaving unless I ask them. What I'd love to see, for example, is an online survey for every employee that leaves the county, where they, we can categorize
Exit interviews.
and exit, and it can't go to the agency head because they may want to be critical of the way the agency or department is run. It really needs to be anonymous and online, and I'd love to see it come to the legislature, because we are tasked with making judgments about how we improve, how we retain employees, how we recruit them. Unless we have that kind of real strong data, we can't do it. Now, there's going to be a lot of positive things in there too. They say, oh, my agency head was great, and I'm getting more money at the state. Okay, but I want the data to represent that, because that's how we're going to hone in on exactly what our problem is. And it's also going to tell, as Jen mentioned, we've had agency heads that they don't have a turnover problem. So we have to kind of narrow it down and say, where are the turnover problems and what are the reasons for those problems? And until we have that data, I don't think we can really make sensible judgments about how to proceed. Now, the answer can't be we want to pay everybody more. I mean, that's just not going to happen. But we have to live within some fiscal constraints. But I also feel that there are many other factors. Management skill, how much management training do we do? Because oftentimes we promote people who are really good at their job that may not be great at being a manager. And these kind of skills are very, very hard to find. This workplace culture thing is really big. Every business person I've ever talked to talks about culture. And, governments don't necessarily talk a lot about that. But what is our county culture? And does it vary from agency to agency? That's what I would love to know. But
Well, Mr. Murphy talked about changing the culture just with a name.
Yeah, that's a good example. And that came from the employees who felt somehow they were being diminished. So that's really...
So listening to the workforce culture,
Yeah.
so listening to the employees.
On a regular basis, on a survey that really tells us things specifically about what the real issues are. And then by the way, I don't mean this to be punitive to any of the agency heads. If we can identify a problem that needs improvement, I want to work to help improve that process, maybe with training, or maybe with greater understanding of what the frustrations are of the agency, so we can deal more candidate more
You wanted to say
directly
something?
with them.
No, wait a minute, Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, one of the things that we see,
Mr. Bergdorf.
sorry. One of the things that we see in our agency is that, there's something like, smaller facilities may want to come over to our facility. Some of our employees might want to go to another facility, where there's advancement in our industry, within the county and surrounding counties. But what we see is what's called the golden handcuff, where they've been with us for 10, 15 years, and they have got these benefits built up, and they do have their vacation time and all of this built up. And when they transfer, they lose it and they start at square one. In trying to recruit to come over to our facility from, some other facilities that they wanted to make that advancement, they were like, I don't want to start at square one. I built up this time and everything else, and I'd have to start, with no vacation for a year.
Okay, good, you're getting on.
But Tim, isn't that, with the benefit package we have, wouldn't that keep people here, I would think?
Well, but the thing is, what we're seeing is, here's a good point in case, okay? Rensselaer County is looking for a chief operator right now. Okay, they require a 4A certification. If we had one, okay, they could jump over to the adjacent county. Okay, but what we're finding is that, one, we got to get the incentive to get these guys certified. All right, money's not always the case, like you say, but when, the benefits package that they're carrying sometimes hinders that because they got, they maxed out on their vacation and everything else, and, they, to make that move, they don't want to lose all of that, and start at square one. So, I've heard people tell me that, from other municipalities, to come to ours, and it was one of those things that we talked about, if there was like a pool where that they could put in there and pull from that, as opposed to just paying them out just to move.
Yeah, I think the kind of input we're hearing today and the kind of data that we get from employees, that's what has to drive our policy. And it's not an easy thing to know these things because they change all the time, and the economy, the strong economy is making it difficult now because people have more options. But this is, that's why this ongoing dialogue with the employees who are leaving, that should really drive our policy in a way that's going to make, get the most value and it's going to benefit our employees the most.
So we do, in the department, and I don't think we're by ourselves, we do exit interviews with folks as they're leaving. And so some of the comments that, we have gotten pertains to some things that there is but so much that can be done to change them. So, on-call is part of the caseworker position. Now, to the extent we get
To be on call.
to be on call because we're a 24-hour agency, so during non-business hours, there needs to be someone to respond if there is a report that comes in from the state central registry. And so what we've done is to have as much staff input into the development of the on-call list. So we'll send out the holidays, in advance to say, okay, who is available to work the holidays? So, you have folks who are opting in that says, okay, well, I don't mind working Thanksgiving, or I don't mind working Christmas, whereas if we just went through the random, assignment, then you might get someone where that is a challenge. I mean, there's always the opportunity to switch with someone, but, if we send those dates out ahead of time and you have people who are already willing, then it minimizes, some of that angst if someone gets assigned to, that's, a particular holiday. So in terms of the high caseloads, again, especially when, we are balancing the vacancies and the reports are coming in. So, I mean, within the last 2 months, we've looked at caseloads and we've looked at, it actually is a division, if you will, in terms of those who have a more manageable caseloads and those who are higher. And so what we've done is, for those whose caseloads are on the higher end, we've actually taken them out of the rotation, because recognizing that if your caseload is that high and you're continuing to get cases, you're never going to get unburied. And so, yes, there is on the other side, there is the impact that if you take someone out, then that's one less person who's getting a report. But on the other hand, you take them out of the rotation for, 6 weeks to 8 weeks, it gives them an opportunity to focus on closing out some cases. You bring them down, they're feeling better, less overwhelmed, and then they go back into the rotation. So we're looking at some of the challenges that we think that we can address internally. Advancement, that's tough, you know, in terms of, especially when you look in the caseworker series, there's a caseworker, there's a senior caseworker, supervisor B, supervisor A. So there are not a lot of, especially as you go up, there's not as many positions for advancement. And if you have someone who newly goes into a position such as a supervisor B or a supervisor A, and they still have 10, 15 years left for retirement, then that room for advancement is constrained. And so that's one of the feedback that we get when people are leaving, is just that room for advancement, they're looking for it. Now, if you have someone who has
So they're
been-
leaving to go to a place.
to say the state where there is more room for advancement. Now, you have to.
Probation too, I think.
We've lost some to probation. You know, to what Tim said, if you have someone who's been here for, say, over 10, 15 years, then most likely they're going to remain here because they're invested now, and in terms of the benefits, it makes better sense for them in terms of remaining here. For the ones that are coming in, that are here 5 years or less, this is a good stepping board for them, and then they're looking for that next opportunity, and usually that's going to the state, because again, ultimately, there's more room for advancement.
Mr. Bergard.
I agree with so much of what has been said here. I differ slightly from my colleague, Mr. Grimm. I think the big gorilla in the room, to a large extent, is how much we pay people. Very candidly, when I was on the Colony Town Board, we couldn't wait to hire an Albany County Sheriff, and they couldn't wait to come to the Colony Town Police Department because they were going to get a 20 or 30% increase in pay, they were going to get better working conditions, they were going to get better benefits, the whole 9 yards, and the town of Colony wasn't going to have to pay somebody. So, I mean, that is just, I realize that's just the law enforcement side of this, but also in one of the other jobs that I had, I supervised a number of computer agencies. And I don't think we recognize that young professional people, they take a job when they get out of college, but then in the private sector, they don't get 2% raises or 3% raises. When they reach a level of proficiency, they're then eligible for the $15,000 raise. And if we don't have a clear career path for young professionals, we are never going to keep them. And given what we pay here, that's very difficult to do. And I'm amazed that even within Youth and Family Services, with the positions that you have, the ladders, the steps in each position, and as people go up, that's still not enough to keep people here. And that's got to be a testament to what our salary structure is compared to what's around us. And a lot of that can be, some of that, not a lot of it, can be mitigated with innovative management and letting people get the right holidays off and trying to accommodate people. But I think we have some structural.
As Commissioner Clement said, you've got to drill down, I think is what you're saying, to certain jobs. But if you I just heard career path, I think you mentioned career path. Can our employees shift from agency to agency within the county to get opportunities, or are the jobs so specific that there's not that kind of flexibility? Like within the state, it's so big, you can move from department to department to get those promotions internally instead of having to leave.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. There are opportunities, but there are constraints sometimes too, because there might be a promotional list.
Right. So,
which, somebody.
Again, civil service barriers and opportunities. Right.
That's also important too for us to the best of our ability and knowledge, to give as many promotional exams as we can, so people do feel like there's an opportunity to advance.
Okay, Mr. Ward, I think you had a question, and Mr. Touchette then.
Yeah, I just wanted
and then Mr. Lukakis.
Comment, coming from my full-time job is overseeing the smallest community around that usually loses people to everywhere. And
where is that, Sean?
That's Green Island.
Oh, Green Island. Oh, he's from Green Island?
Is it the town or the village?
Camera's right over there.
That's why I'm turning this way.
You have the best electrical.
I think that the private sector, in essence, is starting to compete on the benefit side with us, because we're in tier 6 now. Our young people coming out of school right now will be tier 6 in the retirement system.
So are you gonna ask the millennial question?
I'm getting to it.
Okay, good.
And I don't think that benefit is the same as when I got into the government.
Well, you're talking defined benefit plan versus they don't have those.
Exactly.
We may be tier 6, but
Defined
compared to what?
contribution plan.
Yeah.
So so we have to compete. I think salary does play into it. Young people are looking at salary coming into it. But when they get to a certain point, Commissioner stated correctly, I think we're losing them to better opportunities for pay and advancement.
So not just pay is what Mr. Grimm was saying.
They're not happy.
If we want to get experienced people, we're looking at the 35 to 45 range in age. And I think our county has a problem. I'm not worried about
bringing them in from outside.
Bringing them in from outside.
Okay. Lateral
or otherwise. I'm not concerned about losing people in that age because I think the county has some constraints on health benefits. And otherwise, take my situation, I'm not looking to go anywhere, but I couldn't go to the county right now because I would lose my health benefits, or I'd have to work 20 years to get it. And that would bring me way past the age of real retirement. So that, I think, is a...
Your health benefits in retirement you're talking about.
I'm talking about health benefits.
In retirement.
For retirement health benefits, I'm sorry.
Other
yes.
Post-employment benefits.
Correct.
Of which we're now accrued at about $500 million to the negative?
Yeah, on paper, according to GASB, yes.
Yeah.
So, I had suggested a few years back that we take a look at our policy for retiree health benefits. And I'm not saying there definitely should be, I don't see somebody coming here working 2 years and getting health benefits for the rest of their life. But if we want to hire some experienced people in that 35 to 45 age group, maybe we should be looking at 10 years or have some kind of a scale.
That's been recruitment.
That would be expensive, I know, but
well, how expensive? I mean, how many people would we be talking about? Because you have to grandfather in those who are already there.
You're talking about dropping the threshold?
So, well, I know when I came in 2000, it had just jumped. There had been, 10, Sean, when you started, and now it went up to 20?
At least
20 years?
Yes. But I believe it's 1999 or 8.
It was back when I first started.
1999 it
Yeah.
passed, right.
September of 1999.
I started in January. Yeah.
But
So you're saying that's a potential for a certain experienced individual to come in more mid-level, mid-career. We need to think about how they're thinking about, beyond to their own retirement.
And I've heard that from many people at both the state level and even city folks that want to come here.
So it's not that the benefits they get while they're working, it's they're thinking ahead to retirement.
Absolutely.
Leave where they work right now.
Right, yeah,
Good point.
right now, if I retire in Green Island, I have my health benefits for what, I have to pay a premium reimbursement. But I have what I have. I would not get that if I left. If I left right now, I would lose all that benefit. And, you still get the retirement benefit. Other things, when young people come to me and say they're gonna leave the village, I always have an exit interview, and I'm kinda happy when we progress them to a point where they can advance. But I always sit down with them and I go over things with them, the pros and cons of leaving. And I'm honest with them. And, you gotta look at salary, of course, benefit package. If it's government, the retirement is gonna be the same. But you gotta look at other things, the commute in. One big thing with county employment, I think, is parking. Parking, is an issue depending on where you work. And then safety and security of workforce. Whether, not so much from parking, but the job itself. And I think we do, and I'm not saying we do a bad job on that, but I think that's something you have to look at. The residency, I think we've been very lenient on residency in the fact that if we find a position where it's hard to recruit people, I think this legislature has been very cooperative in granting waivers for 1 year.
Too cooperative.
And I think we've done that, Vice Chair of Personnel, Mr. Grimm has done it a few times, and the President Committee. So I think that can be worked around. I personally believe that we have 300,000 people in this county, that we should be able to get qualified people for most every position that we're in.
I'm glad you've joined us down at the end of the table, Mr. Ward.
I've been waiting all night. And Mr. Chairman, I want to say thank you. This is a very good conversation. I didn't really know what to expect coming in.
Well, I take that opportunity to say that we're starting a conversation here.
Yeah.
When we had a lot of our law department-related agencies in here, this was a common theme, okay? Nursing home, it's a common theme, and all of you, it's a common theme. So, Mr. Touchette.
Well, I was going to mention the nursing home.
From the southern part of our
You
county.
know, we're, as Mr. Grimm says, it's not always the money, but sometimes it is the money. We have 40 vacancies for nursing assistants at the nursing home. And part of the problem is there just aren't enough CNAs to go around. Every nursing home has vacancies, every hospital, every
Well,
home.
CNA was a position that we created to address an issue we had.
Right. But I think,
now,
you know, Mr. Slatke thinks that when the nursing home refurbishing is completed, the environment is going to be
so the working environment,
will attract people.
that's quality of life working
I think
environment.
It may.
if there's
So there's culture,
that many-
there's both. I mean, yeah.
System on
I
the
think we
nursing
have to
home.
figure out a way to be competitive.
So one of the factors that involves is a national shortage within certain titles. So when I'm talking about drilling down to the title level, the analysis of that includes, is this basically an industry-wide shortage? And that's exactly what you're talking about for CNAs.
I'd also like to remind everybody that Mr. Slatke told us about how nice the union for RN, the registered nurses, part of their collective bargaining agreement, the senior nurses who normally would have gotten more of a raise agreed to take less so that their younger colleagues could get more, because they value having, those newer people helping them too. So there's things there's things that employees can help other employees with, whether it's sick time you're sharing or, even wages, so.
Even Larry Slatke said 24 is too low, but some are getting 33 doing the same job, and that's created a morale problem. So now they're trying to negotiate to say, well, can we come to more of a medium salary, given that 24 is too low? And that's a great example of data, by the way, Rick. There's no question that pay is too low. We have to do something about it. But that's an innovative way that ladies come up with to help deal with the problem.
Sam, still here? Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
I have a question.
Lakakis?
Yeah.
Liz, Deputy Chair of Personnel?
It's not so much a question. I think it's really amazing at what you guys do with what you have and how much you do retain people, and how, we hear these little anecdotal stories about, like Slatke's thing about how the nurses took less, and then I work for Planned Parenthood part-time, and we have amazing turnover in the frontline people, just like he does. And the other thing that I noticed is that they do travel. Some of them live in Boston Spa, some of them live outside of Troy, Poston Hill, Schenectady. The younger people seem to be doing bigger commutes, and I don't know if they're commuting because they think the job is better, but they're tied to their family in Poston Hill for some reason or whatever. And I don't know, I was laying in bed the other day and I was just thinking, what is it about working? I think we seem a little stodgy at some level to some people, and I was wondering if it's like how we look to the younger workforce. Like, we look like, you think going to work for the county, what is that? It's like old school kind of thing. I don't know.
Security.
So I was just wondering if we had like an ad campaign interviewing people who work for you at the Water Purification, talking about what a great job they do and why they like to work there. And some cool caseworker that you find who really likes their job and has been there for 10 years and has something positive to say about working for the county. So we spend 10, 20 grand and do some kind of a PR campaign about
The
how great it is to work
results
here.
of caseworkers' intervention, you know, and how.
You know, I don't know, like something like more positive and more like, I want to say sexy, because I don't like that word, but more attractive to like the younger sort of set. Like I live with 21-year-olds. They're all about looks. They're all about how it looks. You know, they don't think really for the future so much. They're all about what's cool, getting a good job, good money. You know. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say.
I just want to say too. I had the opportunity this spring to interview young people for the intern programs, and it's amazing when you sit down with teenagers or young people that are just entering college and maybe in their freshman year and sophomore year, the thoughts they had. But what really
That should be a recruiting tool now.
got to me as I sat there and I was trying to, I asked them where they wanted to work. Some of them had parents or relatives that worked for the county and knew where they wanted to go. And there was a young lady that actually wanted to work for the water purification plant, which I was amazed, okay? But a lot of them came with well thought out ideas of what they wanted to do and where they felt they could accomplish it within the county. Okay, I think about this one young man who was into computers. Okay, but not just computers, but how they worked in the different programs and this and that. And I felt like we should have been able to offer him just a little bit more. Okay, we were talking about the Granicus, and so forth and so on. But he could do anything, absolutely anything with programming. And so we need to take the benefit of when we're actually looking at these interns in the summer and really try to pair them up and really give them some on-the-job experience so that they would want to come back, okay, from summer to summer and offer us some really good skills, because they are definitely out there and they were on that website trying to get to work here. And so it's a gold mine that I don't think that we're looking at right now. We should be waiting until the kids are in the senior year. It's those one. I mean, how many people did we have, Jen? When you think about it, how many kids?
To retain, or how many did we have come through?
How many did we have come through?
Young adults.
Oh, did we interview? We had about 80 hired, and we had, I'm not sure how many were interviewed, but
It was how many?
90 interviews for 73.
Wow. But like I'm saying, it's a gold mine that we really need to, tap into. And think about, saying, telling them we want you, to come back, and trying to pair them with the right department where they can hone their skills. And they just have a lot to offer.
Do any members of our panel have?
Yeah, in that regard, if they were to put together almost like a resume, of what they wanted to do, and we could see those, I mean, it would be a lot easier for us, especially like me, to say, hey, this person will fit in well with what we want to try to accomplish with that internship program. Like you said, computers, for instance, okay? We do ArcGIS work. That may be something that, we would have matched him up with and said, boy, this would work out really well with him and give him some practical experience in what we're doing.
And that is an improvement to, actually 2 years ago, we began the questionnaire, which is submitted with the application for the internship program. And that questionnaire, which I think is what we're talking about now, where it specifically talks about what do you like to do. It basically asks that, what do you like to do? What are you interested in? What are your goals? And those are all things we now draw out of the interns prior to even the initial interview and placement, so that we can look at what is this individual interested in, so that we're doing targeted placement. And then we did, not this year, prior year, we did resume building, so that individual leaves here with also resume in hand, and we can do Also, we tap into civil service and have them meet with they actually come to the orientation and do a presentation on what is civil service and how can you sit for exams. While they're here, they can sit for exams, and it's a great opportunity for all those interns to hear what the civil service opportunities there are as well.
But one of the things I found out, though, now I'm going to share another thing. But one of the things I did find out.
That'll be the day.
Got that on tape.
Well, was when I asked them, did they have any special skills? Okay. No, not really. And I said, well, do you know how to do anything with Word? Oh, yeah, I can do Word, I can do Excel, I can do Access. They had no idea, you know, how valuable that is, and that even on the county level, we're sending people to school, even right now, to take classes to learn how, and they already had it, but they didn't know. So when you put that on there, with these young people today, it's a given that they're learning this stuff in high school.
So we can identify what our needs are as well as the other way around. So, just like to say, Commissioner Clement's been a strong opponent of the intern program, and I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Ward for helping to get this off the ground and being such an advocate as well. Last question from Mr. O'Brien.
Do you do a job fair at all during the year?
We participate in job fairs throughout the county, several. Civil service in tandem with HR, or affirmative action,
They're out there all
vision.
the time.
We do serious recruiting at the job fairs, very successful participation in all.
So I'd like to thank all of our panelists for coming tonight and for your insights and contributions. Again, we're starting the conversation. This was intended to be a constructive discussion. We're not coming at this from, oh, there's a lot of high turnover, you know, not that at all. I was going to say we're working the legislature, we're here to help.
We try to.
But seriously, if you have any more insights, anything you want to share with us, please feel free to reach out to Tim Nietzsche or any of us. Okay, and hopefully the Personnel Committee is going to be carrying the ball on this.
Just to follow up what Lynn said, the most desperate people in society wind up here, and there's no other place for them to turn. So we have a remarkable story to tell in Albany County, and that's a story you have to tell more often, because there are a lot of people and a lot of young people who have big hearts. But if they're put in the right kind of position, they can thrive. And I appreciate everyone for all the work that you do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.